Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening a file that on the surface feels incredibly familiar. I mean, if you have owned a television in the last, 25 years?
Oh, easily.
You know the face, you know the voice, and you definitely know the attitude.
We are talking about Leah Remini, and for, I'd say, the vast majority of people, she is sort of frozen in amber as Carrie Heffernan from The King of Queens.
Yes.
She's the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense wife who could just verbally decimate Kevin James with a single look. She's, a definitive sitcom icon of the early 2000s.
Exactly. And usually when we do a deep dive on a sitcom star, the narrative is, well, it's pretty predictable. We talk about the audition process, the residuals, maybe a failed movie career, or, a reboot 20 years later.
Right. It's usually a story about navigating fame.
But this is not that story. Not even close.
No. In fact, the sitcom stardom is almost just the prologue. Or maybe the financing mechanism for a second act that is unlike anything we have ever seen in Hollywood history.
It's a wild pivot. We are talking about a woman who went from being a CBS staple, making millions of dollars an episode to make people laugh, to becoming arguably the most vocal, high-profile whistleblower against a powerful, controversial, and deeply entrenched organization.
It is a study in contrasts that is so stark, it's really hard to wrap your head around. On one side, you have the glossy magazine covers and the red carpets, the whole Hollywood machine.
Yeah.
And on the other, you have a woman who had to completely dismantle her entire worldview, lose her social circle, face what she alleges is harassment and stalking, all to rebuild her life from the ground up, right in the public eye.
We aren't just skimming the headlines today either. We have pulled a massive stack of sources of really comprehensive biographical overview, details from her memoir Troublemaker, court filings, hours and hours of interviews.
Yeah.
Our mission is to really unpack this trajectory.
Yeah.
How do you go from a child actor in Brooklyn to a devotee of a high-control group, and then finally to its fiercest critic?
It is a story about resilience, absolutely. But I think, more importantly, it is a story about the cost of speaking out. What does it actually take? We are going to look at the mechanics of the control she was under, the fair game tactics she faced, and this psychological concept of this sunk cost fallacy that keeps people trapped in these systems.
And we'll look at the quieter victories, too. Because amidst all the noise and the lawsuits and the fighting, she did something really human and relatable. She went back to school in her 50s.
There's a lot to get into. Let's rewind the tape. Before the sitcoms, before the activism, we are going to Brooklyn.
Bensonhurst, to be specific, which, if you know New York in the 70s, it brings a very specific image to mind.
Totally. Leah Marie Remini, born June 15th, 1970. And looking at her background, you can immediately see where that trademark toughness, that don't mess with me energy comes from. Her dad, George Remini, owned an asbestos removal company.
Which is just about the grittiest, toughest profession you can imagine.
It's dangerous. It's hard labor. Her father had Italian ancestry, rooted in Sicily. And her mother, Vicky Marshall, was of Austrian Jewish descent. So she is growing up in this very culturally rich, likely very loud, very vibrant environment.
It's the classic melting pot of New York. You've got the Italian side, the Jewish side, the Brooklyn attitude all rolled into one. And religiously, it started out fairly traditional, right?
Yeah.
The sources say she was baptized in the Catholic Church as an infant.
She was. For the first few years of her life, that was the framework. She was raised in the Catholic faith. It provided the baseline of her spiritual understanding, whatever that means for a little kid. But then the timeline pivots. And this is the moment, really, that sets the course for the next 35 years of her life.
She was 8 years old.
8 years old. Her mother, Vicky, joins the Church of Scientology. And from that moment on, for all intents and purposes, Leah Remini is raised as a Scientologist.
I think we need to pause here and really explain what that means. Because when people hear Scientology, they often think of the celebrity centers or, Tom Cruise jumping on a couch. But for an 8-year-old in the late 70s, this isn't just going to a different Sunday school.
Oh, no. It's a total worldview shift. It's a complete immersion. Scientology describes itself as an applied religious philosophy. It has its own vocabulary, a whole dictionary's worth of terms. It has its own ethical codes and its own structure of progression called the bridge to total freedom.
So for a child, what does that translate to?
It means you aren't just a kid anymore. You are a spiritual being, a thetan, who just happens to be in a small body. And you're on a path to recover your godlike abilities. The whole world is framed differently.
And the family's involvement escalated incredibly fast.
It really did. By the time she was 13, things got...
Well, intense is an understatement. We are not talking about attending services once a week anymore. We are talking about the Sea Organization.
The Sea Org. The Sea Org. And this is a crucial term to define if we want to understand her journey. The Sea Org is described as the church's paramilitary wing. It's the clergy, essentially, but it's structured like a naval organization.
They wear uniforms, right?
They wear uniforms that resemble naval dress blues. They live communally in barrack-style housing. They dedicate their entire lives 24/7 to the service of the church. It's the most dedicated level.
And the source material here provides a detail that just stops you in your tracks. At 13 years old, Leah and her sister were taken to join this organization. And as part of that process, they were forced to sign contracts.
And not just any contracts. These are the infamous billion-year contracts.
A billion years. I mean, just saying that out loud sounds like science fiction. It sounds like a joke.
It's not. It is literal in their theology. The idea is that you are an immortal spirit. You will live life after life after life. So you are pledging your loyalty to the Sea Org, not just for this lifetime, but for the next billion years of lifetimes.
You're signing away your eternity.
At age 13.
So practically speaking, at 13, she's not worrying about which boy she likes in homeroom or going to the mall. She's working.
She's working for room and board. She's living in a dorm. She's treating this work as the most important thing in the universe because, you know, the fate of the planet depends on it.
It's an incredible amount of pressure.
It completely bypasses the normal developmental stages of being a teenager. You were treated as an adult worker. But interestingly, this stint in the Sea Org didn't last forever. The sources say her mother, Vicky, decided to pull them out within that same year.
Why? Did she lose faith or have second thoughts about the whole thing?
Not at all. The mother remained a dedicated Scientologist for decades after. From what we can gather, it was more about the conditions. She just decided to remove them from that specific paramilitary wing and return to civilian Scientology life. They moved from the Sea Org base in Florida back to regular life in Los Angeles.
But you don't just walk away from the Sea Org without a bill, do you? I've heard about this.
No, you do not. This is a fascinating and, frankly, coercive mechanism called the freeloader debt.
Freeloader debt. That sounds aggressive.
It is. The logic is this. While you are in the Sea Org, you receive all this training and auditing, that's their form of spiritual counseling, for free or at a massive discount because you're staff.
Okay.
If you leave, or blow as they call it, the church bills you retroactively for every single service you received at its full exorbitant public rate.
So they hand you an invoice for your own exploitation, for the labor you provided them.
Essentially, yes. And for Leah's family, this was a massive, crushing burden. The sources discuss the financial reality of this move. Leah spent her teenage years, her high school years, working regular jobs, you know, waitress, whatever she could find.
Specifically to pay off the family's debt to the church?
Exactly. Debt for the auditing they received while in the Sea Org. So instead of saving for college or a car or anything a normal teenager does, she's grinding to pay back the church.
And it's a double whammy, because she's also paying for continuing courses.
Right. She is. Because in Scientology, you have to pay to move up the bridge. It's a pay-as-you-go system for spiritual enlightenment. So you have this teenage girl who should be dealing with normal high school drama, just completely consumed with paying off this religious debt.
This had to have a massive impact on her education. I mean, how could it not?
It decimated it. We will touch on this more later because it becomes a huge part of her story. But she left school with only an 8th grade education.
Wow.
The family and the culture of the organization did not value traditional schooling. The WOG world, which is their term for the non-Scientology world, was seen as lesser, as degraded.
So the logic is, why learn history or geometry when you have the technology to save the human race?
That's the mindset, exactly. So she enters adulthood with an 8th grade education, a massive chip on her shoulder, and a very, very strong work ethic born out of absolute necessity.
She had no safety net. There was no backup plan. She had to make it work.
She had to hustle.
Which segues perfectly into her career, because she didn't just walk onto the set of King of Queens. She was grinding in the late 80s and early 90s, taking any job she could get.
It is a classic working actor resume. I mean, she was pounding the pavement. One of her early roles was on Who's the Boss. She played a character named Charlie Briscoe.
I vaguely remember that.
And she must have had serious charisma because that guest spot actually led to a spinoff.
Living Dolls, I remember this.
Living Dolls. It premiered in late 1989. And here is a piece of trivia that always blows my mind. She starred alongside Halle Berry.
No way. Leah Remini and Halle Berry in the same show.
Yes, they were both playing models, living in a house together. It was, very of its time. It was short-lived and only ran for 12 episodes, but still, that is a solid start. She was getting in the room.
So from there, she just hits the sitcom circuit hard.
Oh, yeah. She had a supporting role in The Man and the Family in 1991. Then she pops up in Evening Shade playing a character named Daisy, who was the girlfriend of J.R. Ferguson's character. She was getting typecast a little bit. The tough, street-smart girl with the attitude.
Which, I mean, it worked for her.
It totally did. But for a certain generation, there is one role before King of Queens that everyone remembers. It was Summer. It was the Beach Club. It was Bayside High on Vacation.
The Malibu Sands Beach Club? Saved by the Bell?
Daisy Carosi.
Yes. The tough-talking boss's daughter from New York who steals Zach Morris's heart.
It is a cult classic arc. It's like a 6-episode perfect little story.
It really is. And she had that attitude even then. You watched her and you believed she could boss Zach Morris around. He was this slick operator, but she just shut him down.
She had a natural authority. She also did a stint on Cheers, right?
She did. This is another one of my favorite bits of casting trivia. She played Serafina, the daughter of Carla Tortelli.
Which, casting-wise, is absolute perfection. Oh, absolutely. The attitude match between Rhea Perlman and Leah Remini is just... it's spot on. If anyone could be Carla's daughter, it was Leah.
She just had that energy. She was tough, but also, vulnerable underneath.
She appeared in 1991 and 1993. She also did NYPD Blue, a show called First Time Out, another one called Fired Up. She was working constantly, just building that resume, paying her dues. But here is a what-if moment that could have changed television history.
Oh, I love these sliding doors moments. What could have been?
So in 1994, Leah Remini auditions for a pilot. A little show called Friends.
Okay, which character? It's got to be Phoebe, right? No.
Monica Geller.
Whoa. Get out of here,
Monica Geller. Can you imagine?
It would have been a completely different show. I mean, I can't even picture it. Think about the energy difference. Courtney Cox brought this neurotic, high-strung, but ultimately very sweet, lovable energy. Leah Remini would have brought a much tougher, if you don't use a coaster, I will break your fingers kind of vibe.
It would have been hilarious, but totally different. Obviously, the role went to Courtney Cox, and the rest is history.
But Leah was clearly on their radar. The producers must have liked her.
They did, because she did appear in the show later. In 1995, in the episode The One with the Birth, she played Lydia, the pregnant woman whose LeMay's partner bails on her, and Joey Tribbiani steps in to help.
I remember that. She was yelling at Joey. It was great. It's just wild to think she was that close to being a lead on the biggest show of the decade.
But missing out on Friends left her available for 1998.
For The King of Queens.
The big break. She lands the role of Carrie Heffernan alongside Kevin James. And we have to give this show its due. It ran for 9 seasons, from September 1998 to May 2007.
It was a juggernaut. It was a staple of CBS Monday nights. And looking back, it's interesting because the character of Carrie could have been very one-note. The nagging wife trope was everywhere in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, it was a stock character.
But she played her with such specificity. She was scary, but you rooted for her.
Yeah.
You understood why she was so frustrated with Doug all the time.
She brought her real self to it. That Brooklyn grit, that refusal to take nonsense. The chemistry between her and Kevin James was just electric.
And during that time, she became a household name. She was making serious money. She was even doing Quaker State oil commercials. She was everywhere.
She was. She had a role in the comedy Old School in 2003. She had her own reality show on VH1, Inside Out, Leah Remini, which documented her wedding, and then the birth of her daughter, Sophia.
So from the outside, life looks perfect. She's on a hit show. She's wealthy. She's starting a family. She has achieved the American dream that her parents, worked for. But as King of Queens wraps up, she transitions into a different kind of role. She joins The Talk.
This was 2010, the first season of the CBS daytime talk show. It was this big experiment, a panel of mothers. It was Leah, Julie Chen-Moonves, Sarah Gilbert, Holly Robinson Peete, and Sharon Osbourne.
And this is where we start to see some of that public conflict that becomes a theme later. Because she wasn't renewed after that first season.
Right. Her and Holly Robinson Peete were both let go. And it was messy. It wasn't a quiet departure.
No. In 2012, this turned into a massive public Twitter dispute.
With Sharon Osbourne.
Yes. Leah did not hold back. She tweeted that Sharon Osbourne had them fired. And the specific accusations were pretty ugly. Leah claimed Sharon thought she and Holly were, and I'm quoting Leah's tweet here, too ghetto and awkward.
Too ghetto. That is a heavy accusation. It carries a lot of class and racial coding.
It does. Sharon Osbourne, for her part, denied it, calling it false gossip. But Leah challenged her to establish in a court of law what was untrue. She basically said, sue me if I'm lying.
Which is such a Leah Remini move. It's a preview of the legal battles to come. She's saying, I have the receipts. Do you want to do this? She's not backing down.
It shows that Leah isn't afraid to burn a bridge if she feels there's an injustice. She's willing to be loud about it. Most celebrities would just issue a polite statement wishing everyone the best and move on. Leah went for the throat.
And interestingly, this friction resurfaced years later, in 2021, when Sharon Osbourne was fired from the talk after her own on-air controversy regarding race. Leah and Holly Robinson Peete both came forward and reiterated their claims about her past discriminatory behavior.
And Osbourne threatened defamation lawsuits again.
Right, she did, but ultimately took no action. So this whole incident, it really illustrates her personality, perfectly unafraid of conflict and willing to go public with grievances, a trait that becomes absolutely crucial later.
Because while all this Hollywood drama is happening behind the scenes, she is still a dedicated, high-level Scientologist.
She's been in it since she was a kid. She's a celebrity member now. She's at the gala event. She's donating millions of dollars. But cracks start to form. And according to the sources, the catalyst, the single event that started the avalanche, was a specific wedding in 2006.
The wedding of the century, essentially.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes.
In a castle in Italy. It was the event.
The biggest.
Yeah.
And Leah Remini's there. She's in the inner circle. But she notices something missing. Or rather, someone missing. And she asks a simple question.
Where is Shelly?
Shelly Miscavige, the wife of the church leader, David Miscavige.
Correct. Shelly Miscavige had been a constant presence for years. She was the first lady of the church, in a sense. She was at every event. But by 2006, she hadn't been seen in public for quite some time. And when Leah asked this question at the wedding, just a casual conversational question to an official.
What was she told?
According to former high-ranking Sea Org member Mike Rinder and Leah's own accounts, the church spokesman at the time, Tommy Davis, turned to her and told her she didn't, and I'm censoring slightly here, she didn't have the Taving rank to ask that question.
You don't have the rank.
You don't have the rank. Let that sink in. She is a famous, wealthy woman, a top donor who has given millions. But in the eyes of the organization, she is a subordinate. It implies this rigid military-style hierarchy where asking about the well-being of a leader's wife is considered an act of insubordination.
It's such a revealing statement about the structure of the organization. It tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamic. You are there to pay and perform, not to think or ask.
Exactly. But Leah didn't just let it go. She didn't just swallow the insult and sit down. She did what she had been trained to do her whole life. She filed a knowledge report.
Which is an internal church report, right? It's like filing a complaint with HR.
Sort of. In Scientology, members are encouraged, and in fact required, to write reports on each other if they see out-ethics behavior. It's a system of internal policing. So Leah asserted that the behavior of David Miscavige, Tom Cruise, and others at the wedding was inconsistent with church rules. She was trying to use the system to correct the system.
She was trying to call the manager on the CEO.
And how did that go for her?
I imagine not well.
Terribly. It led to years of what she describes as interrogations and thought modification. She was sent to the church's headquarters in Clearwater, Florida, for months at a time for re-education. She was essentially blackballed internally.
Oh.
Friends she had known for decades, people she grew up with, wrote these internal reports about her, criticizing her behavior, her tone, her attitude. The church even investigated her family, trying to find leverage.
It sounds like a paranoid thriller. But this is her life.
Yeah.
She's going to work on King of Queens or later The Talk, and then going home to this intense psychological warfare.
And this went on for years, 7 years roughly, from 2006 to 2013. And that is the sunk cost fallacy we talked about.
Right. It's the idea that you've invested so much time, money, and emotion into something that you can't walk away, even when it's actively hurting you.
Her whole life was there. Her mother was there. Her sister was there. Her husband, all her friends, her business contacts. Walking away meant detonating her entire existence.
But finally, in July 2013, she breaks. She leaves.
And the reasons she cited are important. It wasn't just the Shelly Miscavige incident. It was the policies forbidding the questioning of leadership. It was the stories of abuse of Sea Org members that she was starting to learn about on the internet, which, by the way, she wasn't supposed to be reading.
And it was the policy of disconnection.
disconnection. That's the practice where if you leave, your family and friends who are still are required by church scripture to cut you off completely.
You're declared a suppressive person, or an SP.
Right, an enemy. And no one in good standing can speak to an SP. Leah knew this was coming. She has spoken about losing friends who are not permitted to contact her to this day, people she loved.
But she had a very significant support system that saved her from the worst of it. Her family left with her.
This is the miracle of her story, really. Her mother, Vicky, and her sister, Nicole, they all got out. They chose Leah. They refused to be split up.
That is rare.
It's incredibly rare. Often, these exits tear families apart for decades. But the Reminis stayed together. And she also got public support from Paul Haggis, the Oscar-winning director of Crash, who is a famous ex-Scientologist. He wrote an open letter praising her integrity and courage.
So she's out, she's free, she has her family. The safe move, the typical Hollywood move, would be to issue a quiet statement, say, I'm pursuing other spiritual paths, and go enjoy her residuals.
Right. Keep your head down, don't get sued, move on with your life.
But she doesn't do that. She goes on the offensive. Immediately.
She becomes fair game, to use the church's own terminology for how its enemies are treated. In August 2013, just a month after leaving, she walks into the Los Angeles Police Department and files a missing person report for Shelly Miscavige.
That is such a bold move.
Yeah.
Taking an internal church question to the actual police.
It was a strategic masterstroke. It took the issue out of the realm of church gossip and internal policy and put it squarely into the realm of criminal law. It made headlines everywhere.
What happened with the report?
The outcome was that the LAPD spoke with Shelly Miscavige, or claimed to have made contact, and closed the investigation as unfounded. The church called it a publicity stunt. But the message Leah sent was crystal clear. I am not afraid of you, and I will use real-world institutions to challenge you.
And then came the media blitz. She realized that her best protection was to be as loud and as public as possible.
Exactly. Silence makes you a target. Being loud makes you a witness. She wrote a memoir in 2015 called Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Scientology. It hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. She laid it all out.
And then the show that really changed the cultural conversation, Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath on A&E.
Running from 2016 to 2019. This wasn't just another reality show. This was documentary activism.
It was heavy. I remember watching it. It wasn't just Leah talking about herself. It was barely about her at all, in a way.
No, she used her platform to interview people who didn't have a voice. Former Sea Org members, people who had been bankrupted by the church, people who had lost their children to disconnection. The mission was explicit: to shed light on alleged abuses, bullying, harassment, coerced abortions, and to encourage other victims to speak up.
And the industry recognized it. It wasn't treated as tabloid fluff. It won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards and a Television Critics Association Award. It legitimized the criticism in a way that hadn't happened on that scale before.
And she didn't stop there. In 2020, she started a podcast, Scientology, Fair Game, with Mike Rinder.
The irony there is so potent. Mike Rinder was the former head spokesman. He was the guy who, in previous years, would have been the one on TV attacking her.
He was a high-ranking official. He was part of the machinery that enforced these policies. But he got out, too. And they joined forces. It's a very powerful alliance.
And most recently, in 2023, she took it to the courts. She sued the Church of Scientology and David Miscavige personally.
This is a major escalation. She isn't just making documentaries anymore. She is seeking damages in a court of law.
What are the specific allegations in that lawsuit?
It's a long list. She is accusing them of harassment, stalking, psychological torture, and a coordinated decade-long campaign to ruin her livelihood. She claims they have been interfering with her business contracts, scaring off potential employers, and sending private investigators to follow her and her family.
It's a battle that is still ongoing.
Yeah.
And it takes a toll. You can hear it in her voice in interviews. She is exhausted, but she just won't stop.
But amidst all this, the lawsuits, the documentaries, the fighting, she did something really personal and quiet for herself. She went back to school.
This is one of the most touching parts of her narrative for me. Because remember, we talked about her leaving school in the 8th grade.
Because of the Sea Org. She missed high school. She missed college. She felt that was a huge chunk of her life that had been stolen. She has spoken really openly about feeling insecure in rooms full of educated people, feeling like she wasn't smart in the traditional sense.
So in May 2021, she announces she was accepted into an associate degree program at NYU.
New York University. That is no small feat for anyone, let alone someone with an 8th grade education starting in her 50s.
And she was so honest about it on social media. She posted photos of herself studying, stressing about essays, pulling all-nighters. She said it was one of the most difficult experiences of her life. She was in her 50s, sitting in classes, writing papers on logic and history and math.
But she stuck with it. And in January 2024, at age 53, she was awarded an Associate in Arts degree.
It's amazing. She's working toward a bachelor's now, right?
She is. She called it taking back her life. It's such a powerful reclaiming of self. It's saying, you took my education from me, so now I'm going to go get it myself on my own terms.
And speaking of reclaiming, she also reclaimed her faith.
She did. She went back to Catholicism, the religion she was baptized into as a baby. In interviews, she has contrasted the peace she finds in saying the rosary with the chaos and constant expense and judgment of Scientology.
It seems like she really sought out stability and tradition after decades of something else.
I think so. She even had her daughter Sophia baptized in the Catholic Church in 2015. It was a very symbolic return to her roots before that pivot happened when she was 8 years old.
Now let's catch up on her career outside of the activism. Because despite the alleged attempts to ruin her livelihood, she didn't stop working in Hollywood.
Not at all. She did Dancing with the Stars in season 17. She made it to 5th place. She even came back as a guest host and a judge later on. She has a personality that just works great for reality TV. She's honest and funny and unfiltered.
And there was a big reunion with Kevin James.
Wait. Now, this is a fascinating and kind of brutal sidebar in TV history.
Oh, it's brutal.
So Kevin James has this new sitcom. He has a wife on the show, played by the actress Erin Hayes. Leah comes on as a guest star in the season finale. And the audience goes nuts. The chemistry is just undeniably still there.
So what did the producers do?
They fire the actress playing the wife, kill off her character between seasons, and bring Leah in as a series regular for season 2.
It was such a polarizing move. The backlash was huge.
It was ruthless, but it just shows you how powerful the Leah and Kevin dynamic is in the eyes of network television. They tried to recapture the magic. Unfortunately, the show was canceled after that second season anyway, but it kept her in the game.
She also teamed up with her real-life best friend, Jennifer Lopez.
In the movie's second act in 2018, she played Joan, J-Lo's best friend. It makes sense. They are very, very close in real life. J-Lo stood by her through the Scientology exit, which was a big deal because not a lot of other celebrities did publicly.
And she's been hosting. She hosted People Puzzler on the Game Show Network and was a judge on So You Think You Can Dance?
So she keeps reinventing herself. She refuses to be pushed out of the industry. She just keeps finding new lanes.
But we also have to touch on a recent personal update, a big one. We mentioned her husband, Angelo Pagán.
They met in 1996 at a Cuban restaurant, a very classic meeting story. They married in 2003. It was actually a Scientology wedding at the time. Angelo was a Scientologist, too.
He left with her, didn't he?
He did. He stood by her side during the exit and through all of the aftermath. He was right there with her. But recently...
Yes. In August 2024, they announced they were divorcing. And it was finalized in October 2024.
After more than 20 years of marriage, it's just another major life transition for her. It feels like the ground is always shifting under her feet.
When you look at the whole picture, from the billion-year contract at 13, to the Friends audition, to King of Queens, to the whistleblowing, the NYU degree, the divorce, it is an exhausting amount of life to have lived by age 55.
It is. And I think the key takeaway here isn't just about Scientology. It's about the difficulty of breaking away from any system that raised you.
It applies to anything. A bad job, a toxic family dynamic, a political party, a bad relationship.
Exactly. It's about overcoming that sunk cost fallacy. She had decades invested. She had millions of dollars invested. Her whole identity was invested in this thing. Walking away was the hardest possible choice. It would have been so much easier to stay and pretend. But she chose the hard road.
And she used her platform. She could have just left and stayed quiet. But she chose to be loud.
And that loudness has changed the cultural conversation. I mean, think about it. Before Leah Remini, Scientology was this mysterious, quirky celebrity thing. After Leah Remini, the general public knows terms like disconnection, they know about the hole, they know about the allegations of abuse. She took the mystery away and showed the human cost.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Leah Remini, we are left with a woman who has worn so many masks. Sitcom wife, talk show host, activist, student. But the common thread seems to be this absolute refusal to be told no.
Or to be told she doesn't have the rank.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener.
Leah Remini was silenced, or they tried to silence her, with a claim of rank. She was told she wasn't important enough to ask where a missing woman was. She eventually realized that in the real world, the truth doesn't care about rank. Rank is just a construct. It's a tool used to keep people in line.
So the question we want to leave you with is this. In your own life, or your own organization, or your own community, what are the questions you are not allowed to ask?
What are the topics that are off limits? And more importantly, what does that silence, that taboo, tell you about the power dynamic at play?
If you aren't allowed to ask, there's usually a reason why someone doesn't want you to know the answer.
Something to think about.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.